thing pops up. Now, notice there's a lesson background, key economics and personal finance concepts, objectives, time required. All too often, when I look at lesson plans and look at time required, I realize that the person who estimated this never looked at the lesson plan. That's not possible that they could say, this is only going to take 20 minutes when it's 17 pages long. It's just not feasible, but you can count on this. Why do I know that? Because when these publications are test driven by teachers and nothing gets published in a CEE publication that hasn't been test driven in multiple classrooms across the country, the teachers who test drive these lessons, and by the way, they are paid to do so because your time is valuable, are asked to do it exactly as written, which is really hard to do because most of us just instinctively change lessons to suit our own presentation styles. They ask these people, though, to do it exactly as written and to use a stopwatch to time how long it took for them to do it. And then they send the times into CEE, and CEE calculates the average, and that gives them this idea. There's also a list of materials. Now, remember, I taught pre-service teachers. If everything isn't there, when you send a pre-service teacher in to do something, things will fall apart. There is nothing worse than getting halfway through a lesson and discovering you don't have multicolored pencils for the class. What are you going to do then? And then you get into the cross-hatching and the whole lesson goes by the wayside. This is really important. And it's not just pre-service teachers, by the way. When I got into Econ Ed, I was an economist by training. I'd had a grand total of 1 semester in how to teach econ at the collegiate level. And basic, that was how do you choose a textbook? How do you write a test? That kind of thing. I had no idea that all of this wonderful material was there. And I needed to know everything I needed to have ready when I walked into a classroom to share this with my students. There are additional resources, and then there's the procedure. And the one thing I hear over and over and over again from teachers about these procedures is that these lessons are so well laid out and the procedures are detailed enough to leave them for substitutes to do. And they'll look good. These materials make people look good. They don't just say things like, what knowledge, skills, and experience does the cook in the school cafeteria need to have? They give you the answer to that. What kind of things students will probably say and what they should be thinking about, so you can add to the discussion. They don't do things like say things like introduce yourself and talk about why financial education is important. Okay, well, that's a big area to make up a lecture on. No, this is all here. Now, if you go back to the Browse Economic Lessons where this lesson popped up, you'll notice once you view the PDF, and by the way, you can download it, you can print it. If you decide you like it, though, at this point, click Save. There are 1,392 lessons in here. And if you do not click Save, you may have difficulty finding it. Somewhere in here is a lesson that uses the Jeopardy format. I found it once. I never found it again. But, and they don't refer to it as Jeopardy format because that's a trademark violation. So if you find it, let me know. Save it. Then, if you want, what do students need to do this lesson? What are the worksheets they fill out, the homework they look at? To find those, you click on the student guide, and there's usually a reading that accompanies that as well. Once again, save it. Now, any questions about this resource? You can address to me at my email address at FEP, which is House at OSPI. You can go to the FEP.org website and see the wonderful resources that we have been developing for your classroom use. As you can tell, I rather liked a lot of these lessons. And I think you will as well. It's really a great resource once you get it down into chewable bites, as it were. Another resource we would like to especially note in our trainings is this guidebook. One of the things that we discovered in teaching personal finance is that we need to be especially aware of our students' backgrounds when we go into many lesson plans. For example, when I was teaching at Western, it was early December. We were looking at a lesson plan for elementary students that asked elementary students to write down what they wanted for Christmas. Now, remember, I'm teaching college students here. And as we're looking at this lesson plan and people are writing their Christmas lists out, I noticed one of my students is crying, starts to cry. And she said, I always hated these kinds of lessons because we could never afford Christmas presents. It was like a light bulb going on for me. And so we have students coming from a wide variety of backgrounds, especially a wide variety of economic backgrounds. So how can we tailor our financial education lessons to take into account the needs and backgrounds of all of our students? Financial education curriculums are written primarily by and for the middle class. There are a few that are written for wealthy individuals. There are a very few written primarily for low-income individuals. But we rarely have the luxury of having a whole class of low-income individuals or a whole class of high-income individuals and a low class of middle-class individuals, for example. Our students in all of our classes represent a wide variety of economic and cultural backgrounds. So once I had this experience, I turned to people I knew who were dealing with this all the time. And that was our master educators here in Washington, our financial fellows. And we met, I think, once or twice a month for several months and talked about ways to make personal finance lessons more inclusive so that we are not leaving any students out or behind. I didn't have the answers to how to do this effectively. I knew that our financial fellows and our master educators here in Washington would have the answers. So we talked, and I just wrote up the conversations. And the book is actually divided into sections based on content area. And you can get a feel for things to look out for in lesson plans. But nobody wrote these lesson plans to be cruel to children from low-income households. No one wrote them to exclude students from cultures where saving is actually viewed as being selfish. That wasn't the idea behind any of these curriculums. But in some cases, we found things that really excluded a significant number of students in our class. And by significant, I just mean one. That's all it takes. So if you are interested, please look at this. We are asking for comments about it. And if you have hints on how you modify these lessons to make your materials more inclusive for all of your students, please share them with us. Thank you for taking the time to be here today. I hope you enjoyed the virtual economics flash drive. Bye.